Hi, the Sci-Fi Recapped here. Today I am going to explain a science fiction action film called Antimatter. Spoilers ahead, watch out, and take care. Two students, Anna and Nate, are conducting an experiment with electrons. This is primarily Anna's research and Nate is working with her on this. Anna is able to use her experiment to make an electron disappear. An electron is a small particle with charge and a mass within an atom. The flow of electricity is basically the flow of free electrons. Anna doesn't know where the electron is going, but Anna is able to consistently achieve the output. So they decide they want to do this to an entire atom, which is still small, but needs more computation power. Anna wants to try a whole molecule. A molecule contains multiple atoms. She feels that she will be able to trace where a molecule is going. They approach another student, Liv, who knows how to get more computation from a pool of computers. Liv suggests hacking, using a programmatic worm, into all the computers in the school network and using them. It's illegal, but they go for it. The trio hacks the school network and begins work. Eventually, they are able to make larger objects, like marbles, disappear. Then they work on setting a destination for these objects. So for a Rubik's Cube, they set an end destination. The cube disappears from its start location and appears in its end location. They have achieved teleportation through a wormhole. A wormhole is usually a shortcut in space and time. Next, they try and teleport living things. They try plants, and then a caterpillar, which all seem to end up fine on the other side. They also test with Liv's grandmother's cat. The cat too is fine. They check to see cellular mutation or molecular decay in the specimen. They don't find any issues. DNA, RNA is identical before and after teleporting. Anna and Nate go out for dinner. They have a good evening as she shows him a magic trick with a coin. This scene is to show the chemistry between Nate and Anna. Soon, they are able to create a small stable wormhole. Liv throws an object through it which comes falling down on Anna. So far, the wormholes have been opening up just long enough for the objects to go through. The team looks to demo their findings and get funding. Nate uses his father's help to get patents applied, in Anna's name, for what they have found. Just then, a patch is released by Microsoft that will shut their worm down, which means they will lose computation from all the hacked-in computers after a day. They are now in a hurry to demonstrate something soon to get that funding. So they decide one of them has to go through. They draw matches to decide who is going through the teleporter. It happens to be Anna. They prepare to send her through. Just before she does, Nate confesses his love for her and gives her a kiss. Anna goes through the wormhole. After this, we are not shown what happens until the end. Everything is shown as glimpses through flashback sequences. Anna goes through the wormhole and appears a few feet in front of where she starts. It's a success and everyone celebrates. But because the wormhole is open for too long, the gravity field distorts their readings. So they need to repeat the jump through the wormhole with it closing the nanosecond Anna comes through. This will ensure their readings are accurate. The assumption the team makes is that soon as Anna's mass comes through, the teleportation is complete, so they use a weighing scale. They connect the weighing scale to the generator soon as it has a mass input. They try again. Anna goes through the wormhole and onto the weighing scale, and that instant the generator is shut off. But the team notices another Anna standing at the starting point who faints. The story follows Anna Light after a few days. She wakes up disoriented in her room. She makes her way to the lab. She runs into James, one of the protesters. She tells James that she supports his cause, but she's not feeling too well. She meets with Liv and Nate. They tell Anna Light that they have lost computing capacity and are back to testing with atoms. They tell Anna Light that she was going to do some tests. Obviously, Anna Light can't remember. We are shown a scene where Anna is talking to her mother. Her mom is moving from her current home. She says she has found some photos from long back. But Anna says, "No, Mom, just throw it away, or give it to charity." She also goes on to say, "I told you, everything has to fit in a small trunk." Well, that's the point of a small trunk. This Anna doesn't really connect that well to her old memories. I suspect that this is antimatter. Also, she has the flu, and a virus can't really attack something made of light. Anna's character is warm. Antimatter comes across as more calculating and focused on efficiency. She's able to make new memories, but there is something missing in her, perhaps empathy. The story continues to follow Anna Light. She goes back home to notice that her house is trashed. Antimatter in an ape mask is there with all of the science work and ID in a backpack. A thing to notice here is Antimatter is shown to be in no hurry. She toys with Anna Light. Perhaps she's fascinated by seeing her replica. They two fight and a chase ensues. Antimatter gains the upper hand, pushes Anna Light down in an alley and leaves with the bag. Analyte wakes up and heads home. She talks to her mom and tells her that her room was burgled. She's also upset that some photos were gone too. Analyte is connected to her past memories and is emotional about them. When Analyte tells Nate about the robbery, he doesn't react very seriously. He knows it was Animatter. He simply says they'll not make sense of the stolen docs. Analyte also says that she's unable to remember anything after the experiment. She senses that something went wrong. Nate says nothing went wrong, he just changes the subject. Next day, everyone in the university gets an email saying that the worm was traced to the university. There is going to be an investigation, as the hacking is classified as cyber terrorism. The worm spreads through hundreds of millions of computers. Analyte starts keeping a little notebook and begins writing down things she needs to remember. They distract Analyte with doing the tests again. Analyte notices that the storeroom is locked. She asks why it is locked and that it has never been locked. For obvious reasons, Anna starts getting paranoid. She specifically calls it her project when Nate says our project. Nate changes the subject to Analyte's lunch and tells her to go get some sleep. She leaves. She sees someone with the ape mask and then realizes that multiple people are wearing it as part of the protest. She runs into James again. James threatens Analyte about her experiments, with absolutely no knowledge of what happens in the lab. He has assumed that animals are being tested on. James is being an asshole at this point. Later, Analyte breaks into the lab and finds the weighing scale. Analyte has no idea what the weighing scale is doing as part of the experiment setup. Nate calls her, tells her that they should meet for dinner, and asks her to write it down. At dinner, Analyte asks Nate about what is going on. He doesn't tell her the details. Nate tells her that she has an MRI scan coming up in 2 weeks, because she was hit. He lies to her saying that her memory problem is because she was hit in the alley. Analyte feels that it was because of the wormhole. Nate tries to convince her that it's not the case. He also mentions that this particular conversation she has already had with Nate and Liv. Nate urges Analyte to stop investigating. He says this because the school is already being investigated for the cybercrime and they don't want Analyte screwing up anything for them. Nate brings up a 2-year-old story. When he once trusted Anna, now he wants Analyte to trust him and stop investigating. He wants her to write it down in her notes. Analyte asks Nate to kiss her. He doesn't. He doesn't because he's in love with Animatter. According to him, Analyte is the anomaly and he's in a relationship with Animatter, and he sees them as two distinct people, Nate's being a nice guy. Next day, Analyte goes back to the lab and asks for her camcorder. She wants to see what actually happened during the experiment. Nate tells her that it's at his place as he's copying the videos onto his computer at home. Analyte starts freaking out when Nate asks how her mother is. She's getting increasingly paranoid. Just then, all the students are called in for a briefing. The cyber investigator meets with them and explains the worm has affected hundreds of millions of computers. This is why the department is being investigated. Stovington is the lead investigator. Analyte, Liv, and Nate meet to discuss how not to get caught. They worry what Analyte might say something. Analyte is now paranoid that her work is being stolen from her and asks where the patents are. Nate assures that they are being done in Anna's name. Analyte freaks out again and remembers what Nate says about teleportation only takes matter through. Analyte feels that her soul was left behind. Little does she know that she is the light that got left behind. Analyte calls her mom. Her mom says, twice in a day, lucky me. Animatter has called her mother once in the morning. Animatter tells her mother not to talk unless she hears a specific password. Only Animatter knows this password. Analyte is clueless about this, so her mom hangs up. Another point to note here is how Animatter has provided a machine-like setup to talk to her mother. Anna's character would not have done something like this. Analyte says, "You're my mom. I'm not giving you a password to talk to you." Here again, you can see a difference in the characteristics of Analyte and Animatter. The film is trying to show us that Animatter is not all Anna. She's missing a portion of the original Anna. That portion is Analyte. Analyte begins to do some research on brain damage. She thinks she sees Nate, but turns out to be some other lady. They have an interesting discussion. Analyte continues to grow more paranoid about things around her. She gets a maintenance guy to open the storeroom. The maintenance guy shows up and tells her that he has already given a key before. He's actually given the key to Animatter. She's inside the storeroom. Analyte gets annoyed and leaves. Outside, she's followed and taken in for questioning by Stovington. He tries to act smart to get Analyte to confess that the worm was hers. Anna says she's a chemist and not a programmer, shuts him up, and leaves. James and his gang of animal activists begin to bully Analyte for the animal testing they have assumed she's up to. Analyte loses her notes. She goes to Liv's grandma's place and steals the gun from there. Nate is following her and calls her asking her to come back to the lab. Instead, she breaks into Nate's home. She wanders into his bedroom where she sees a glimpse of Liv making out with Nate. The reality is that Antimatter and Nate make love. How this memory transfers from Antimatter to Analyte is unknown. This incident happens after the experiment. Analyte goes through the video and notices that when Anna goes through the wormhole, there is a small fraction of a moment when there are two Annas. One at the start point, the other and the end point. Here's a big plot hole: the teleportation happens at light speed and higher. Somehow a camcorder with a max of 120 frames per second is able to distinctly capture events happening at light speed. Ideally, this would be a blur. Nate comes home. He tells Analyte that they've already explained to her what went wrong with the experiment multiple times, but she keeps forgetting. He urges that she goes back to the lab with him. Analyte retaliates and fires at Nate's neck. Lucky for him, it's a flesh wound. Analyte heads to the lab all dazed and confused with what she saw in the video. She strongly feels she's lost her soul, and that is why she can't remember anything. Liv spots her and takes her into the lab. They begin explaining what happened, that the travel through the wormhole happens faster than the speed of light. That the second time she went through, they shut the wormhole soon as she went through. This didn't give enough time for light to go through. The video confirms this with two Annas. They say that they have shown this multiple times to Analyte before. But she's forgotten it over and over. Analyte now thinks that she's a clone. The reality is worse than that. She's not a regular matter, she's made of light. She sees her blood sample through a microscope. She doesn't see anything. She's an anomaly. Liv is visibly frustrated, trying to explain to Analyte over and over. Liv is pissed off that she's trying to help and Analyte is trying to shoot her. Analyte breaks down, saying that she can think and she has emotions. How can she not be real? They explain that since she's made of light, she's not eating or making any memories. They can't understand it, but based on the definition of what real is, an object made of matter, they tell her that she's not real. Antimatter appears from the storeroom and apologizes for pushing Analyte in the alley. Antimatter says that she was very scared that day. Nate says that Antimatter has masked, therefore she exists and she is the real Anna. Analyte tells Antimatter that she's missing her soul. Antimatter says that she remembers what she does and was pulled through, and that is enough for her to be real. They tell Analyte that the algorithm has been rewritten and that she has to go through the machine again, but when Analyte asks them where will she go, they say, nowhere. Essentially, they plan to simply destroy Analyte as they consider her an anomaly and need to be removed. Analyte says that they want to kill her. Antimatter says that Analyte is not alive to kill. Analyte calls her mom and tells her how much she loves her. Anna's mom has sent a package. It's a tape of an old memory, an old recording where Anna is playing the piano. This cassette continues to play on in the background. Antimatter takes the phone and talks to her mom, abruptly cutting her off, saying she's listening to the tape and that she will call tomorrow. Analyte tries to justify that she too is real because she has all of these memories. Antimatter simply says that those memories are hers and not Analyte's. Analyte can't make any new memory. Nate tells Analyte that they've tried keeping her in the storeroom, but then she would forget and her herself and them. The two Annas have one last conversation. Analyte agrees to be destroyed. She says her byes. Nate finds a moment where he wants to kiss Analyte. Perhaps for that short second, he connects Anna's empathy and not just the mass and memories. Analyte stops him though. Analyte is sent through the wormhole. She's deleted. Nate says they should shut the project down after what has happened. Antimatter says no. Liv agrees. Antimatter says, do we outlaw cars because people crash, or electricity because it electrocutes? I have the MRI on Thursday, that'll give us some closure. Then we press ahead. It's called progress. Did we really imagine there weren't gonna be any teething issues? Antimatter seems unaffected by the fact that they have just destroyed a being with thoughts and emotions. She brushes it off as teething issues. She's only focused on the progress. When it comes to the ongoing investigation, she suggests that they can pin it on James, the guy from animal rights protesting outside. James may be an asshole, but pinning the hacking of 800 million computers will make him rot in jail all his life. Again, Anna wouldn't suggest such a thing, but Antimatter doesn't care. Nate and Liv are considering this, and Antimatter quickly distracts them with conversations about further testing, money, funding, and all the cool shit they are about to do. While she says this, she demonstrates a quick ball trick which she makes disappear by switching it in her hands. The ball trick is achieved by distraction. This is indicative that Antimatter is using distraction to get things back to the way she needs it to be. She doesn't want to have Nate or Liv ponder further on what they have done, that they have destroyed a person just because Analyte didn't fit their scientific definition of real. Antimatter quickly states that she is starving and that they should go out to eat. Again, she's reminding Liv and Nate that she's the real one because she feels hungry. She's just awfully cheerful. In conclusion, the film tells us this: Anna going through the wormhole splits her up into two parts, antimatter and analyte. Nate and Liv conclude that antimatter is real because she has mass and memories. However, the real Anna can be brought back only if antimatter and analyte were combined to become one again. But they don't do that. Nate and Liv, with the guidance of antimatter, find a way to destroy analyte. The film ends with the caterpillar inside its cocoon fluttering. This shows the metamorphosis of the caterpillar into a butterfly. This shot indicates the metamorphosis of Anna into antimatter, the being without her light.